Alright guys, alright, we're coming towards the end of the term here. Good job this week. Everybody got their work in, so I'm really happy to see that. Okay, Alessandro, I'm going to look at yours first. And there were two people that did this pose, Alessandro and Luke. So good job, you guys. Okay, Alessandro, the legs on this one are a little rocky down here. They don't really have the foreshortening that I'm looking for. So I'm going to try to go ahead and work on that. I think you're sweeping too much this way. We need to bow out with it. And then she has this really interesting, she's a dancer, so she holds her foot in a very unique way. Get this out of the way here. Pencil sharpener. And so that being said, there's some issues down in here that I want to talk about. The head's okay. It's not indicated, very flattering. I mean, I think that the nose is a little long. She's very short-nosed. She's got really big kind of Disney eyes. Her lips are pretty interesting and full. Your lips are okay. The nose is, like I said, too long. Face shape, not quite. It's longer. It's not quite as square. It's more like, she has more of a square head. So watch that. The way you're indicating the hair, she does have very straight hair. I would probably give it a little bit of some kind of little curve to it or something. Hands are blocked out okay. Again, it's a 20 minutes, so I'm not going to hyper obsess about the rendering of this. We'll get into that in one of the longer streams down the road when Eric and I are doing long figure. Okay, so yeah, the knee. This knee, if you look on the photo, it goes uphill quite a bit on the pose, and the patella sits up a lot higher. Yours is almost straight across. So we've got an angle problem on the knees. So let's go ahead and get in there, and I'm going to do a little bit, mostly on the legs. And then when we do the next one of Luke's, I'll talk about the torso maybe a little bit more because I think the legs were fine on his. So, okay, Alessandro, good job, man. Way to stick in there and way to really show up each week. I really appreciate it. You guys are doing great. I know it's, it's a new thing for a lot of you. So let's just kind of see what we can get done here. Okay, I'm looking for my HB. My pencil sharpener may or may not be sharp. Plugged in? It is. Let's see if I can get this thing to... There we go. Okay. So when I look at the reference, let me just go ahead for 1 second and adjust the reference a little bit. It's a little bit low for me. Let me get a little bit higher. Let's see if I can see it there now. Yeah, that's good. Perfect. Okay. So let's see what we can do here. Again, when we have foreshortened legs like this, you just got to kind of go in. It's all about getting the musculature to pass in front of other musculature in the proper ratio. And we're basically coming right at us. So we really have to think of this cylinder coming right at the viewer, right? So we're basically looking at a cylinder getting smaller when it goes away from us, right? But on a leg, this area up here is a lot larger, substantially larger than this. So even though we have this object coming at us, this will still be bigger than this, but this will be a little bit larger than it normally would be. I also like to square off this rear a little bit instead of rounding it, just to show the insertion of that leg into the hip and then the butt muscle here being compressed against whatever it's sitting on. So just things to think about. When you get into a knee, we want to talk about these little protuberances or these little bulging areas. Are they bone? Are they tendon? Are they ligament? Are they fat pad? Are they muscle? What are they? Everything on the body is going to be one of what I just mentioned. It's going to be a ligament. It's going to be a tendon. It's going to be a bone protrusion. It's going to be something like that, right? I mean, it's got to be one of those things. So what we have here is the medialis, which again, on the leg, if we were to look at it, if this was the quad, we were looking straight at it, the medialis sits in here like this, the rectus femoris sits in like this, the lateralis is on the outside, the patella is down here, knee bone, and then we have the squared off area for the groin muscles, and the sartorius runs up like that. So this is what you'd be looking at if you were looking kind of straight on at a leg. Now she doesn't have as muscular of a leg of that. She's actually fairly well built. She's voluptuous, but meaning curvy, but she has some muscle to her because she's a dancer. So she has a really fun type to draw. I really enjoy drawing Blythe because she has this really cool look to her. She's a little bit more, again, Rubenesque, which I find really cool. You know, a lot of curves. So you got to strategically find your straights. Now, so let's say the femur bone, which is your thigh bone, it's going back in perspective, something like that, right? So if we were to look at it head on, this is what we're getting into here. And this is a cylinder, 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 lesser trochanter, great trochanter, ball socket there. And then it comes down to these large epicondyles, which make almost a horseshoe shape, and hovering above that, embedded in the tendon, is your patella. Now, all these muscles, the medialis is here, I'm going to put an M on it, the lateralis is here, it rides higher on the outside than the knee muscle on the inside. Okay? Now, we've got to pull this information out of that slight, kind of fuzzy reference of ours, right? And this is what you have to, ultimately we need to teach you guys anatomy. Get in there, study Eric's anatomy, study his anatomy intensives. It's hard to find good anatomy classes. It's hard to find really good anatomy teachers. They're not that readily available. Okay, so this is the tuberosity where the knee, it spills over and it attaches. All these muscles come together via a common tendon here and spill over and come down and attach onto this little bump that's on the front of your shin bone. The patella is a sesamoid bone. I've said this before. It's embedded in the actual tendon. Okay? Now the shin bone comes down here, and if we were to draw through, her foot is actually kind of a little bit over here somewhere. It's kind of sitting at a really kind of funky little angle there. Her legs back here. The tibialis muscle here sits next to the shin bone right here. That's going to sit in there somewhere like that. Now I'm just showing you a splayed version. When I say splayed, it means the skin's been removed. We're looking even deeper into the bone there. So when I lift that up, Alessandro, this is your little anatomy lesson for the leg, right? That's your anatomy lesson right there for a leg coming at us. The bones that are going to be, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bones that we're going to be dealing with there. Okay? Now the other leg, when we look at it, is sitting kind of tilted on its side. And again, you're not going to see a lot as far as this triangle shape of the adductors or the sartorius muscle going all the way, although we know she has one. And we just don't see it. Why? Because she's not, 3% body fat and ripped up to the hilt like some steroided muscle builder or something. She's a voluptuous girl that does some dancing, so she's firm, but she's a little on the bigger side. She's just a little bit more of a larger girl. Now, again, beautiful form to draw, and it just is what it is. So I've got to get this foot in here. This foot is really interesting because, again, she's used to standing on her toe, meaning on point, as a ballerina. So her foot has a tendency to curl in on itself in a very unique way that I think is part of what makes this pose so unique and cool. I like little quirky, weird, eccentric things like that somebody's body will do to make it just add a little element of more of interest to the pose. Something that's a little bit different. Okay, so on this one, Alessandro, you curved in this way. You need to bow out this way, then pick the shin up down here. This bulge right here is this muscle right here. On the other side, we're seeing it almost in profile. Okay? The tibial tuberosity, which we talked about right here, is probably sitting somewhere right where this little shadow cuts in. And then we have another little dark shape right, like a little triangle, or a little, square right there. Then we go up and we go over the top of the patella. And again, we want to make sure that this is the common tendon. The patella is here. It turns the corner and heads downhill. The medialis is somewhere in here, and it's slightly blown out in the photo. Even though it's a really nice photo, it has plenty of information. That's about how subtle you're going to see it in a life drawing class. It's going to be barely discernible. What you're going to want to do possibly is go in and make it more obvious. The only way you can do that is if you understand the way it works. That way you have the option of accentuating or exaggerating the actual information rather than just copying what you see. When you copy what you see, like I've said so many times before and I'll say so many times in the future, you're going to get a mediocre drawing, right? Why? Because you need to draw part of what you see, part of what you know, which we need to learn through academic means, and also good teachers and good instruction, and then you're going to draw what you want to see, which is going to be a hybrid of those concepts put together. Okay, so Alessandro, this is pretty much what I'm going to leave you with here on this one. We could get into so much more, but I think that's plenty to get your teeth into right now on this drawing is this leg section, which I think, again, was a little wanting. Not for anything other than lack of probably knowledge on your part. So that's a completely legitimate excuse, not knowing. Okay, so good job, Alessandro. Appreciate it. Hope all's going well. Holidays are coming up, like at Mach 5, coming up fast. We're going to get Luke on here. Luke, again, you've been doing this for a little while, so you're pretty seasoned, and it shows. So good job, my man. As usual, I hope you're doing well. Hope the kids are doing well. Family. They're probably all getting ready. Holidays up there. Hope it's not. It's probably freezing up there, but I'm sure it's beautiful. It's not very wintry down here. It's been kind of actually an extremely warm, global warming winter down here, where it's like been some of the record heat, fires, and all that kind of great stuff. Nothing that affected us immediately. It was just north of us. But California is so big that everyone probably thinks the whole state's on fire. But it is pretty bad, though. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at this one. So on you, Luke, I'm going to turn the paper here and just talk about your drawing for a few seconds here before I get going. I think you did a wonderful job. I mean, I think it's a decent drawing. Yes, there's plenty of room for improvement. Always is. You've delineated your information really well, but almost maybe too much so. And I kind of did that a little bit on my demo, but I think I kind of had a little bit maybe more subtle and soft. A little cartoony in the foot. I know it's an odd foot that we don't see very often, so you're probably just not used to drawing it. When I look at her, yes, she has big quads, but I think you went too big on this down here. You got a little too big in the lower leg, although it's mapped well, it's just not the proper size. This looks way too big for me compared to what I see in the reference, so I would have made this a little smaller. So you're getting into really subtle proportional things, Luke, so you really have to be on your A game. You're good at holding the pencil, handling the pencil. You're good at your edges. You're good at putting down the right edge. You're decent with the pencil. Your dexterity is pretty good. Everything's going to be about placement and design of that place, what's within that placement now. So I won't let that stuff slide with you anymore. You know, or I don't think I ever really did, but I really want you to take a look at that reference. Make sure that it feels proper. I feel like she's a little bit compressed in here, and I think it's mostly exaggerated by what's going on here. This is the biggest problem with this drawing, is right in this section right here. Okay, so we need to shrink that down, shrink it down a little bit to match up here. Now, the head is decent. I think you've got a little bit more of a tilt on her than she probably has. Maybe your head was tilted when you were drawing. Her eyes aren't, well, there's something going on with this in the head here. I'm not quite sure. I think your nose plane, your nose is going downhill more than your eyes, and your lips are also. So you kind of have this going like this, like so it starts here, and it starts fanning down like that. So there's a little bit of a problem somewhere in there. I like what you did kind of with the hair shape, and I like some of this stuff here. It's a little heavy-handed up in there. I like to see a little bit more subtle use of edges. I think the hands are probably one of the weaker areas here. The arm here, yes, she has a bit of a chunky arm, but I would probably stylize it a little bit. Maybe give it a little bit, you know, lean it up a little bit, maybe tighten it up a little bit. And that would be more, again, something I would want to see versus what I am seeing. I think the breasts sit okay. For the size of her head, I think this distance relationship in here gets a little bit small and cramped. Just a little bit. We're talking maybe, I don't know, a couple millimeters, or centimeters, excuse me. You know, and again, this hand is kind of a clump of bananas. It's not the best staged hand I've ever seen, but it could be more elegant than that. It just looks a little bit dicey. I know it was a 20, so I mean, that is a really decent 20, if that was indeed what you did, Luke. Fantastic job. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is go in and improve some of those things that I mentioned. Now, we did the legs on Alessandro, so I'm going to probably work around these other areas. Maybe the hand design, arm design a little bit. Maybe not both, but one of them. I'll see what I can do here. I don't really have a timer or anything. I'm not like timing these. I'm just guessing. Sometimes I'll do more, sometimes I'll do less. Sometimes I'll give you guys probably a lot more than, you know, whatever. But I just, I'm trying to just do what I need to really show you guys what I think would improve these drawings without drawing full drawings for you. But again, each one of you, when we go through this crit, it would be just like we were setting up in class and going through and giving everyone a crit in front of everybody, and everybody could watch the whole thing happen. Now, we don't even do that at the Atelier. You get your own crit, you're busy working on your drawing, the next person's getting theirs, you're back on your drawing, you don't listen really, you don't see it, you don't get that added benefit of getting all that information in. So really take advantage of that and look at these other tracings that are being done. Look at the other artists that are in your group and see if you can improve just by watching, you know, their decisions and what they made and what we talk about. Because some of you are at a more fundamental level than others, and others are a little bit more advanced than others. And that's always going to be the case. You should be inspired by the more advanced people that are in your group, not depressed or negatively competitive. It's just cool. I mean, you say, okay, good, man, that guy's really good. I want to get as good as him. And you start getting a little bit of your competitive spirit up. Now, and again, remember, competition can be a good thing. It can be a really bad thing. I am a huge competitor. I'm highly, highly competitive. I love to be good at stuff. I hate sucking at things. And I'll work really hard in order to really be really good at, whether it's at sports or whether it's at anything I do. I don't care what it is. Now, that's just the way I'm wired. Now, some of you might say, well, I'm not quite as competitive as that, and that may be a real negative for me. Don't worry so much about it. But yes, you will run into competition out in the professional arena. I mean, anytime there's money on the line, it's going to be about who's the best, who's the fastest, and who's the most efficient. And whoever is those things is going to win out. You know, and personality and how cool you are, and I mean to work with, how easy you are to work with. So don't underestimate the value of temperament and personality as well as a professional. I had a big lecture with one of my students that's kind of a freaking nightmare in class, and he just was getting a really huge ego, and he had done some stuff that I really felt was just kind of unscrupulous and really not good. And it's a small community of artists out there, so you really want to you want to put your best foot forward, and you want to be very, very humble. The best I've ever, you know, the thing that I think is most wonderful is when you see someone that's just absolutely freaking stellar and humble. Just chill, gratitude, grateful, so thankful to get to be an artist this time around, so thankful to be on this journey, and they're just not arrogant and an asshole, you know? You just want to be really chill. Okay, so I know that's a little off point there, but I mean, I kind of, whenever I'm dealing with stuff like that in my professional arena of teaching with other students, I kind of, well, maybe sometimes it'll trickle into a lecture of somebody else's, and I don't mean to cloud any of your guys' tracings here with that, but I think, you know, again, that's just how I teach. I teach all kinds of stuff. I'm talking about ethics, I talk about, you know, business, I talk about a little bit of philosophy, and then also a lot about technique and edges and anatomy and all the fun stuff. So this hand look, we're going to sweep in it, make it a little bit larger. We're going to pull out that pinky a little bit more, maybe come into a little bit more elegant slash larger, a little bit larger, a little bit nicer hand. That's kind of an interesting hand. I like the way that pinky's trailing off there. As we come down and look at how we're interacting with the bone here into the palm, again, I just want to make some attractive shapes. I dropped a little bit of this, so it takes a little bit of weight off her, firms up that arm a little bit. You know, you don't want that arm, because she's got, again, it's a very odd combo of kind of plump with muscly. And it's really a fun type to draw. This other one here, I'm going to go over and just really, hopefully efficiently here, lay this in. So again, if I was coming down it, I'd probably sweep, you know, through, and then I'd hit some little, squared off for where the wrist goes, the hand goes into the wrist. I like to square that off a lot. She doesn't have terribly squared off wrist because, again, there's a little bit more weight contained in them. Probably a little bit more fat deposits in there than someone who's a little more bony. Get a rhythm here. Make sure you leave the rhythm there. You got that. Side to side, side to side, side to side, side to side. Okay. On this one, yeah, I think what I would have done is separate out that thumb a little bit. The thumb looks a little doughy. I like to put a little sweet S-curve in that. And then we come down to that first knuckle. And let's get that little V-shaped knuckle in there. And let's just go down and again, put a nice little tapered S-curve in there. And I think what I probably would have done is I would have probably moved over the next finger a little bit and kind of cheated it in a little bit. And then the next one, I would have again probably come out a little bit further. And then on that pinky, I would have run out a little bit. Just so there's a little bit more of an elegant, again, let's hold this up a little bit so the light, I'm seeing glare on it, and I'm hoping you're not seeing as much glare on yours. And just kind of, you know, finesse it. And again, those hands, our hands are the toughest thing on the planet to draw well. I mean, they really are. They're just so much more difficult than almost anything else other than the head, some of the head areas. But just remember, hands, feet, necks, heads, there's a lot of little things that really get the caboose, you know, when you're studying. They just get kind of neglected a little bit. And I just, you know, make sure you give them some love. Okay, so Luke, so that's kind of what I'm seeing in that arm. Again, just sexing that up, tighten that up a little bit, make those hands a little bit better designed. Again, watch that leg down there, and I think you did a really wonderful job. And then again, watch your tilt angles on your head. So you're getting that point where you're right there. You got to get to that next level. You're going to have to level up, and you're going to have to do some really serious work because it's not that far, but it is far. You know, you've got to really start dotting your I's and crossing your T's on everything. And I know it's hard on 20. So again, I'm saying some stuff that I know might be a little out of what is expected in this 20-minute class. But just, you know, just take it with a grain of salt and kind of listen to what I'm saying. And then as we get into, again, longer efforts, we'll be able to focus more on individual like pieces, like maybe drawing out that knee really rendered on one and then the foot on another one. And we'll piece them together with multiple people's drawings, and you'll get to see a little bit of demo of everything. So it's really a wonderful way to do it. I really like this structure that we have for the online streaming. It's really freaking cool. I would have just given my left arm to have this when I was in school. It would have just made my job 50 times easier, just having the reference, having the tracings, be able to sit in your studio and do it. Man, I would have been flying. But it's all good. That's what we're trying to do is as you teach anything, you try to improve upon the system that you were taught and try to make it better. Don't just do it the same way. Try to incorporate something that they didn't have. They didn't have this kind of technology when my school was around, so it wasn't an option. But now that we do, it's nice for me to be able to take advantage of it and bring some of this kind of crazy stuff to people that would normally get it. So thanks for being a part of this. I really have had a lot of fun this term. I hope to see you guys in some other ones. I'll be doing portrait next time. So, and some of you may have done that with Eric. But we do it, all of us do it in our own ways. So we all have our own ways of teaching it, our own abstractions, our own ways of bending the abstraction. So anytime you take a repetitive class with us, just like people that take classes at our school, they'll take head drawing, figure drawing 5, 6, 7 times with us. There's always new things being imparted. There's always new information. So I really hope you guys stick with it. If you feel like it was worthwhile for you, I hope you did. Let's see. Always helpful if you can tell some friends. We're trying to grow this thing organically so that we can get it to the point where we can really start offering more and more classes online, streaming and stuff, and do more things. But it really is going to have to come down to really how well it's received. So again, thank you for your support. I really appreciate it. This is a really cool one with the skull. I always like adding little accoutrements, like some kind of little skull or something. I just think it's really cool. And it obviously resonated with you guys because I think 3/4 of you drew this one. So anyway, fun pose. Okay, this is Mikey. I think the legs are a little short down here, and we want to pull those down a little bit. I think you did a really nice job, as usual, but it is a little cartoony in areas. We need some straights in there, and she's heavy on curves. We already talked about that. So I just think, again, as you get a little bit more seasoned, your hand gets a little bit better, more dexterity with this particular tool. I know you already have killer dexterity because of what you do for a living, but you're going to need to keep upping it, and this is only going to help your tattooing, and it's only going to give you more, just an incredibly broader range. So I can't wait to hear some stuff from you down the road with how it's affecting your work, or just, it's going to be amazing. I've seen this is such a cool way to work, and it really does just improve that dexterity for everything. So let me know how that's going down the road. Did a good job on the hair, did a good job on the head. I'm not going to talk too much about the head because I think you did a pretty decent job. There's a little bit of sloppiness in there. shape indication that can be tied up while you're there. Little gauzy, meaning I can't really see it. It's kind of fuzzy, nondescript. Whenever you do that note, it should be hard underneath, soft on top. It only takes a second to indicate these edges. So there's really no excuse that it was a 20 and I couldn't put it in because I didn't have enough time. I can tell, I mean, if it's a 5-minute or a 2-minute sketch, and we're doing quick sketch, then yeah, I would say, okay, I could see an excuse for having not indicated this little hard soft maybe, or didn't even get to it. But I mean, that's like a 2-minute drawing of the human figure all the way through and trying to get a nice, indication in quick sketch. But when you're on 20, you have enough time to dot your I's and cross your T's on the edges and the head. Make sure that the hards are hard, the softs are softs, the firms are firms. And really, it's either you're not seeing them or you're checking out in some way. You're either, and I'm talking about everybody, I'm not just talking about you, Mikey. I'm just talking about people just check out. They don't think enough. They just phone it in, and they move to the next thing. It's decent enough, whatever. Yeah, next thing, And you go down that thing, and next thing you know, you just have this kind of half-ass effort, You have this effort that's not the best you could do. Always put your best foot forward and do the best you can. And if you're doing that, that's all you can ask from yourself. And it was a good effort. Don't freak out about it. Oh, God bless the trains. Oh, my God, I love them. Okay, now this is a tough hand. Again, I was trying to explain to Blythe how to hold her hands because it's not something she does naturally all that well. And some people's hands do it naturally and they just hold elegant, beautiful hands, and other people it's like pulling teeth trying to get them to do it. So I'm not terribly happy with how her hands were staged. I'll watch more carefully for that in the future. It was just a lot of stuff going on in the class, trying to get these pictures taken and everything, and there were people milling around and asking questions and, all that great stuff. So I didn't really quite have my A game on for looking at hands to make sure that they weren't weird, but I will in the future, so sorry about that. But it's good practice, because you're going to get people that just hold hands in a certain way, and every time they sit down to take this pose, if you were doing a 3-hour drawing of it, would be different. The hand would change all throughout the class, and you're going to be chasing it around looking for the right one and the best one, and it's just the way it goes in life drawing. Okay, so like all this stuff, I think the biggest thing I can improve upon this, and I'm kind of getting a little carried away with just almost doing a full tracing, is this lower leg section, because I just think it got a little away from you. What usually happens, Mikey, when you get down here, and I'm saying this for everybody, is you forget to look up at the head and the torso and see if the legs are matching it. Okay? And that's when the problems really start kind of happening, is that the person's not referring back to their spatial relationships in the upper section of their drawing. And it's just not good, Okay, so we're just kind of coming down. We're going to drop the foot a little bit more. We'll drop this knee out. That's fine. I think you're good there. And then I think what we need to do is just, again, kind of drop that foot a little bit lower. And maybe even a little bit lower than that. Right there, I'm looking at the other one. Comes up and then over a little bit like that. I would treat these feet as if they were almost one unit, trying to link them together. There's a cast shadow from this foot onto the other one. And then you've got the heel as it rolls around, and then the arch of the foot as it comes down into the ball of the foot, and then you have her toe kind of just, down here, not doing anything too fancy or crazy. And then the cast shadow over here, which we need to show falling over the let's see, that'll be the medial epicondyle of the ankle here, this little guy here. All right. Again, the knee, the patella, and then a little bump for the protuberance of the tubular tuberosity. Okay, your mapping's okay. It is a bit of a freaking rat's nest down there of shadows shooting all over the place. So a little bit of linking some together, maybe a little bit of redesign in there might need to happen in order to get them to be a little bit more articulate for the viewer. Again, what you see and what you draw are not always the same thing. Okay, I want to keep reiterating that. We want to get you to the point where you are designing what you see, not copying, interpreting. analyzing, scan, identify, predict, decide, execute, scan, identify, predict, decide, execute, scan, identify, predict, decide, execute, all the way through the drawing. Every time you stop and look at that model, you scan, you ask yourself, what am I seeing? I'm seeing this, I'm seeing that. What do I know about that? Well, I know this based on the drawing class I took with Eric or whatever, or this other class I took with somebody else. And this is what I know about the leg, this is what I know about the knee. And you go through and you filter each area, you go through a checklist and you say, what do I know about that? So you scan, you identify what it is. You predict what you're going to do. I'm going to hold the pencil on the side and I'm going to pull it in a very deft stroke. And then, so you're making a decision. So you scan, identify, you predict, you decide, and you execute. And then you check it. And you see if that execution went the way it was supposed to. Your dexterity was able to deliver it. May not. You may not have good enough dexterity yet. Usually that's a big problem for most people. You know, and then you go back through that process. And for almost every decision you make, substantial decision on a drawing goes through that protocol until it's so ingrained that you don't even have to think about that process. You just scan, you identify. That's what I do now. You know, I'm sitting here talking about, I don't know, some harebrained philosophical thing that I'm into now. And I'm sitting there jibber-jabbering about it. And the whole time, man, I'm scanning, identify, predicting, deciding, execute, scanning, identify. And I'm not even thinking about it, right? Because I'm intuitive. I've drawn enough times repeating properly with guidance. And that my guidance was Glenn Orbick, amongst others. But he was one of my main guys. And he would just sit there, and his job was to watch me, and he was to go over and do tracings for me and show me what I was doing wrong and stay on it and show me again and again and again until I finally got it through my thick skull, no pun intended, now I'm drawing the skull here, you know, on how to do this stuff. And that's how kind of it went about, you know, it came about. So it was just a beautiful process, very patient on the part of him, as I have to be with you, to sit and repeat over and over and over again the same things in slightly different flavors, slightly different analogies, slightly different this, slightly different that, until ultimately you totally get it. Okay, Mikey, you're kicking butt. You're doing great. Watch those proportions. Got a little away from you down here. Got a little squirrely on all your, everything's, all your shadows are just like they're just flowing. So get some straights in there. Narrow, simplify them down a little bit. Put some straights in there. Angle them a little bit. Don't get too whimsical, I guess is the word I'm looking for. Okay, Mushin, here we go. We're coming in hot here. All right, let me grab some tape. All right, in. Good job, man. Really nice. Very respectable. Very respectable. Not sure how long you took on it, but that's for you guys to know, not me. I mean, you can tell me if you want. Put a little 45 down there or something. Always nice to know. And just, let me know what's going on. Let's see. And if you guys can stick to the drawings that you're on this week, if we are not, I don't want to try to go back and have to dig up the reference from the last week, try to find it's in my flat file somewhere, I just kind of throw them in there. It's just not easy for me to go back and then say, okay, part of the people are doing this drawing, part of the people are doing other drawings. If you miss a week, you kind of miss a week. Try to get your stuff in there for the date and then get the right drawing, for God's sakes. Again, that's just kind of something I'm going to be kind of particular about. Other teachers may not, I'm going to be. Okay, so Mushin, here we go. We're going in and it's looking good and you picked the same pose and we just did the legs, so let's try something a little different on this. I think your skull indication looks decent. It's a little bit dainty of a skull. Looks a little small to me. I would want to maybe beef it up a little bit, little bit, but I think that's a minor thing. It's a sub-element in the drawing, but because it's her hand holding it and it's on her leg, and I pretend like it's part of the body. And I'm going to draw it with the same respect, same accuracy as I would if I was drawing this head or whatever. So make sure when you're putting in anything into a drawing, that is and it's quite nicely drawn within the context of your sizing. I just think it's a little off. So just keep that in mind. All right. Get that little guy a little bit bigger. Okay. Okay, so the hand, for a little 20 indication, which means maybe you spent 3 minutes on it, 2 minutes on it, not a bad little indication. I think it's respectable. Some things that would improve it is just how the knuckle lines kind of as you come in, just kind of how you tweak that little knuckle indication, and then again, how you kind of design the way the finger flows into the tip of the finger. And again, just looking at how you lock together those little shadow shapes, how you nurse these little shapes along their form. I think, again, I don't think that was too bad. I'm going to give you, you know, a B on that, probably, you know, or something. But decent, you know, respectable, especially for an indication. Again, I'm trying to keep reminding myself, you know, these are 20s, these are not. If you're laying in for a 3 hour, then your lay-in wants to be substantially tighter and nicer mapped and everything than this, because you're probably going to spend in a 3 hour, in a 3 hour class, you'll get about 2 hours to do a drawing, maybe 2.5. But you got, well, yeah, it's probably 2, because you got warm-ups, and then you've got a demo, and you got a few breaks in there, and then you get into the drawing of your own. So yeah, you probably get about a 2 hour drawing. So in a 2 hour drawing, you might spend, 30 minutes, 35 minutes, maybe 40 on the lay-in. Now, what we're doing here in 20. So you'll have about 40 minutes, probably double, to do it in a life drawing class and still be able to get something tangible done. Again, it's not about racing through these drawings. Even when you're in a longer class, it's about taking your time. Speed comes from working efficiently and slowly and methodically and accurately. And then what happens is you get so good that you can cut corners and you know what corners you're cutting because you've done it accurately so many times. And that gives you the illusion of speed. So when I'm a really fast executor and really, really good and accurate in some things. I mean, I have my areas that I need work on for sure. But I'm proud to say that, yes, I can execute a human figure probably as efficiently as anybody. But that being said, I mean, I really take into consideration, like the speed at which I'm working. I really try to slow down, relax, and draw accurately, not quickly. I don't move my hand around the surface fast. I just make decent decisions, which eliminates my need to adjust things so much. And as a result, I end up getting the illusion of more down quicker because I'm not having to make so many mistakes, corrections, adjustments, and it works out a lot better in the long run. So again, Mirshen, it was really about this arm a little bit. The head, if I take close scrutiny, watch this stuff too. I mean, it's kind of squirrely along there. I would kind of, again, maybe eliminate this piece right there. You know, it's not too, you know, it's not terrible. The head actually is one of the nicer ones I've seen so far. I haven't seen all of them. I mean, as we go through them, I'll talk more, but quite nice, man. Nice job on that head. I think her irises could be a lot larger. Again, she has very big, kind of Disney eyes, really cute face type, really cool face, wonderful head. Really fun to draw her. So watch your eye size. Tony. Here we go. What are you doing? Let's get this going. Okay. Get that guy taped down. Okay, so when I look at yours, again, we've got some issues around the feet. It got kind of really small down there, really compressed down there. It's definitely a roller coaster along the shadows, which makes your legs look like a lot of cellulite, and it's just not flattering at all, the way you cut through there. So be careful with that. That's really not happening. So just watch that. The leg could be, again, just kind of flow a little bit nicer. Right now it kind of just goes straight along, but it's kind of wonky. It's like, you know, I'm there. So when you get these dips and undulations in there, I mean, the leg cuts through, but it cuts through probably a little higher like that. And then we want to kind of go up and just come down with that leg a little bit. So watch that. Knee gets a little dicey in there as far as locking your shapes down. If you're going to put this guy in, indicate it well. It looks really phoned in, right? And it is a contributing, just like the skull, it is a supporting actor for the drawing. So supporting actors, they need to do their job. Yes, they don't want to be more important than the lead, but they do need to do their job extremely well to support the lead. So just think in those contexts of acting. I think that's kind of a nice analogy. Let's see what we got. The head is okay. It's ghosted in. It's quite nondescript. A little bit too nondescript for a 20, probably acceptable for a 5-minute or maybe a 10-minute quick sketch. I would say that head would float for that, but not for a 20. It needs a little bit more love in there. And I think let's take some time right now to do a little on that head, because We've talked about, we did the hand, oh, your hand's too small by the way too. So again, too small feet, too small hands, a little wonky in the shading here, and then that head's ghosted in and kind of phoned in. So let's go do some head construction on this, just because I'm trying to pick different stuff with each person's to emphasize. And on this, I think, because we're going into a pretty fine area. Again, if I was with my charcoal pencil well sharpened, you know, getting up into these little areas is not that big of a deal. But this is a very small little head, so I'm going to use like maybe a micron or something. But just know that, I mean, the way I would normally handle it again would be on the side. I'd be up on the tip somehow like this, or I might hold the charcoal pencil. You'll see me do that in my demos. I'll hold it up like a pencil, like I write, and I'll get in there and I'll kind of do my thing. Okay, so again, really big irises, the colored part of the eye. There's hardly a highlight in there, but I think I'm going to cheat one in a little bit. It looks like I kind of might look really carefully. See one in there. We've got a lower lid here, and then we cast our shadow here. And we want to really get those eyes and maybe some lashes in there. But just the indication, not drawing like lashes like hieroglyphic indication, but something more like that, right? So there's our little eye, and I hope you can see that. Again, it'd be nice if we had a cameraman zooming in and out for these things, but we do not have the resources for such a thing. I don't think anybody would. Okay. This one on this side should have a really high arcing, beautifully elegant eyebrow. I mean, really full, just gorgeous eyes. Really, really beautiful. I'm going to put that highlight, again, notch it into the white of the eye, and then I'm just going to fill in that. That's a little far out, so I'm going to kind of bring it in a little bit, and I'm going to bring in her tear duct just a little. We're going to run okay, so we're going to run this rhythm through like this outer rhythm up into the eyebrow rhythm, and then we'll cut across. And now let's go down here. Now the nose is really beautifully planed out, and on yours, it's really difficult for me to see much of anything as far as shape. It's really gotten kind of mushy and fuzzy. And again, just a nice little head indication up here. It doesn't have to be as detailed as, I'm just kind of going through and taking this opportunity to tell you a little bit more about this head. Somewhere in between where I'm going and what I'm talking about would probably be, you know, the way you'd want to hit this one. And you'll see some of the other indications on each person's drawing, and just pick the one that's most acceptable to the level you're at, and maybe a little bit ahead of where you're at, and that you can actually maybe get your head around doing. The one I do for you might say, well, God, I would love to do that, but it's just, I'm not there yet. And that's okay. You never have to apologize for not knowing or not being able to do it. Your hand dexterity just isn't there yet. You know, don't be mad at yourself, and don't be hard on yourself. I mean, just draw more, do more classes, do more studying, do more, you know, just get in there and do more of it properly, and it'll come around for you. So I think we have a bit of an issue with maybe the forehead coming around. Where's our skull? Where's our jawbone? Do we have enough room for the cranial mass on that head? Looks a little funky. We're a little hard here and then soft on the outside. Takes a second to indicate that. And ultimately, if we were going to, at break time or something, or after the class, you know, when 20 minutes, you could go in and fill in a little bit of the shadow and just see what that does for the light and dark popping of the form. So, not bad. Talked about a lot of stuff on that. Did a nice little head on that one for you. Jonathan, here we go. Okay. All right, let's get this a little bit, maybe higher. Okay, so Jonathan, on yours, a little bit, yeah, the head's okay, not too bad. It's a little funky. I mean, I think your nose is too Roman. It should sweep back more, and that's probably pushing this eye forward a little bit. Whenever you get that nose angle off, you'll get the eye off as well because they kind of are tied together. So watch that. I see a little bit of an issue with this angle on that nose. And then when I look at it and I look at the model in front of me as if the photo reference taped out in front of me, remember that you guys, get it out in front of you, don't get it to the right, don't get it to the left, don't be drawing with it over here, don't withdraw it over here, get it out in front of you, tape it on a wall, sit down with 2 chairs, put one backwards, sit in a nice comfortable chair, and then just sit like I'm doing, but in a more comfortable manner, with a more comfortable seat. That's how I used to do it when I was in school. I didn't have one of these horses at home until quite a bit later. Again, the legs are a little phoned in. I think that's one of the weaker parts. The skull indication is not that great either. Yeah, there's a lot of little rhythmical issues. There's gaps in your shading. Gap here, here, substantial one there. Not linking your shadow patterns together will kill you. Think of it like visual stuttering. And I've said that before, I'm sure, in one of the other demos for you guys. But it's like a ping pong match, like bing, 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 bing. You're all over the place. The viewer just gets like vertigo. They get dizzy. They get nauseous. It's like seasick looking at a drawing like that. So you want to link it together. And again, partially it comes from the speed factor where you're trying to draw fast. I get that. And you're trying to follow the protocol of the class. I'm telling you guys to do, maybe 30s, maybe 40s if you have to, but try to ultimately work towards doing them in 20. I know you guys are racing that a little bit, but I'd like to see you slow down, maybe get a little bit less down on the figure. Don't get the whole figure laid in, but get what you do get laid in, decent. So maybe you only make it down to this area. And the legs aren't even really in. Maybe it's just a light, kind of, like where you thought they would be, and then you only get this laid in properly, and then this is not, it's in the generally right place, but it's not finished. That might be a better way for some of you guys to go if you're finding it just too difficult. And then later, submit that one, and then go and finish the drawing or do another one of it or spend an hour doing the drawing. I mean, you can always use these for practice for other exercises. The hair, make sure you don't draw it like just little strands, here's my hair, Try to contain it as if you were cutting it out of cardstock, meaning like you couldn't cut all the little pieces out of it. You had to kind of cut the big sculptural shape out. And cut it really attractively as an abstract shape. And don't get caught up in drawing the little hair strands and stuff right now. Just really try to get it. She doesn't have complicated hair. It's very straight. It's very simple. Okay? But maybe something a little bit more like that, And then it's about the head indication, which doesn't mean rendering, but it does mean mapping a little bit and getting it a little bit, nicely indicated. That's always a catch-22. Again, I know I'm contradicting myself occasionally because I'm getting to work right on top of your drawing. So of course I can take it a little bit further than you could because you already laid it in for me, more or less. But I'm just trying to get your guys' thought process when you're doing this to be a little more efficient. Really sweep that nose. She has a little cute ski jump nose, one of those really cute quintessential noses that's really, really, really attractive and cute and ramps up on the tip, So I'd watch that, really get that sweep in here and then angle that front of that nose. Then come back, down, angle, and the tear duct's probably going to be moved to the left a little bit just because of this nose angle changing on you. Okay, so watch that. Now when you get down in the boobs and the breasts, you're just they're kind of just there, but they don't really feel very well structured to me. Like they don't really sit very well. So I would kind of get in and really try to get them to sit a little bit more naturally and just a little nicer. And I think it's just something to do with how they're mapped as well. I don't think the mapping is doing you any favors there. Like this particular one here, we're missing this form shadow around it, and then as it comes into its, more of the webbing here, then what we need to do is get a little hard underneath it. And when it comes into the nipple area, we need to kind of really spend a second just getting it nicely indicated in there. Okay, now again, the bicep isn't really, you don't really even see a bicep on her because it's just more fleshy. So it's a little bit, again, doughier, I guess you could say. it's just a softer arm, you know. It's not going to be, you're not going to be splaying an arm and getting it all ripped up and showing the deltoid insertion and the tricep head. But you do need to, you know, take into consideration, like for example, when we get down around the elbow, at least what little information you do have to work with, make sure you get the most out of that as you can. Meaning, really get in there and lock down that edge, give it a little bit of love. Doesn't take much longer to indicate it attractively than it does to do it non-attractively. You might pull some little designed edges off of it, kind of like an inker would. Okay, then we get in that hand again. You just kind of, the pinky got way too short. That needs to come out a little bit further. We need to kind of indicate where the knuckle turns. Again, get in there with the pencil on the side, tip to side, tip to side. Get those little edge variations that we're looking for. I know that was a tough hand. We talked about that before. But yeah, just do the best you can. You know, I mean, that's all you can do. Be where you're at. It's a little bit better silhouette of the hand, a little bit larger hand is what more than anything. That hand just got so dainty. So when I lift that up and look at it, I mean, it just got a little too small, a little too, you know, nondescript. Again, if you're going to put the skull in, do it nice. I think we got a little tight in here, right? So maybe drop that a little tiny bit in there where that maybe the stomach curves around here. Indicate over, down, and then maybe, again, a little soft edge. Form shadow along it. Maybe a little, make sure there's a little cast shadow maybe under it. Then the leg cuts in here, and then we go with our nice sweeping leg angle over. Little dip into the knee, little tiny dip, very subtle. Then into that knee, and again, she's not very bony, she's a little fleshier, so that dip's going to be even a little less. But yeah, just again, a little straight right there. That's a nice place. This webbing before we go into the dip of the hamstring is a nice place for a little straight. It's where the iliotibial band comes in, and this is your fibula head. You can kind of dig it out of there if you look close enough. But this is where that iliotibial webbing band comes up on the outside of the leg, kind of comes in here. The hip flexor kind of comes into it. The gluteus maximus comes into it. And again, I would square off her butt. I'd come out and I would drop it, and I'd find a little way to square it off a little bit there to help make it look like it's sitting firmly, and she's so heavy on rounds everywhere. Okay, and then watch that mapping as you come along the leg like I did on some of the other ones. Okay, so Jonathan, not a bad job. Keep it up, keep going, a little bit of improvement each week. Small incremental improvements over a long period of time create incredible results. Small, incremental, consistent, every week, every day, stacked on top of each other, one after another, you'll see amazing results. But you won't see it like that, right? We got to work our way up to it. We got to take our time and work our way up. Okay, Anthony, because I think you're the one. I think you entered, or you. I got one of Van, which is the prior week's one, and I got this one. So I'm not usually going to do both of those. I think you missed the one before. I'm glad to see that you did it. Awesome. Make sure you do that. Make sure you go back and watch the other critiques. Even if you didn't get to do the work, make sure you take the time to watch each one of the critiques from the week that you missed, because you'll learn a ton just by doing that. That alone would be huge, would be worth it. So if you don't get the drawing time, then do the drawing when you can. If you miss one, make it up the next week like you did. Just don't send it in for a crit, because I won't really have time to do double up on that, you know. Okay, Anthony, really good job on this one. I think it's quite nice. I think you stretched her out a lot, right? You made her, you know, 5'10", and she's probably 5'4". She's a short girl. And you also skinnied her up. Like when I look at Blythe, I just look at her like she's like a little tank, you know. She's this little muscly, roundy dancer, pixie girl, you know. She's just beautiful. But she's got this tight, and what you've done with her here is you've lengthened the leg, you've skinnied it up, lengthened it. Now there's yes, I always say idealize the form, idealize the model, but don't change them into a completely substantial different type, right? On yours, you're probably the first person who did this, but the skull's too big. I think almost. It's a little too big. But I think a lot of it too is this fullness of the leg down here. Needs to fill out there. It needs to fill out up there. And then, you know, as we come down, I think we could probably use that about for the size of that, for the legs. I think then what we have is we you know, this is probably okay there. I think the arm, again, maybe you're not too far off on that, I don't think. But again, this is probably too long here, this leg. So I'm thinking, what do I want to do here? I'm looking at angle off here. Let's just play around with this a little bit. I'm just going to, for you, do a general lay-in. So I'm not going to hyper obsess about any one thing. I'm just going to set it up the way I would as a big, if I was laying this thing in, and just see where we went wrong, see where the big picture, because we've done details of the other parts of the body. Now let's just use this one as a way of showing how we're setting the whole thing up. So I'd come up and I'd hit a little slash for that, and I'd lean back, and I'm going to lift the piece of paper so I can see what I got. But if I was in class, I'd lean back, I'd look at it, and I'd say, okay, here's the top of my head. Here's where I think the butt is. I'd hold my pencil up and look at this angle on the model. I'd hold it out in front of me like this, and I'd hold it up. You probably can't see it in the camera, but I'm holding it up, looking at my reference in front of me as if it was the model sitting out on the model stand in front of me. And I make that angle, and I come down here and I make that angle. And I say, okay, that feels pretty good where that is. Now I say, okay, we come out here, and I hold my angle up from her top of her head to her knee, like from here to here. And I come out somewhere like right around here. Now you're not that far off at this point. I think the real deal breaker was, again, this width action here. But we're going to find out here as I get a little bit further in. Now again, I look at the foot and I say, well, it's positioned about where you got it, which is good. You know, we've got this heel kind of coming down and doing its thing. And then we've got this leg coming out in front of it. The calf being a lot stockier, a lot bigger. This foot there, and then we kind of look at it and we say, okay, here. Okay, now we set our center line up. We say, okay, center line to crotch. We think the crotch is somewhere under, maybe under her leg, somewhere around there. We kind of look here and say, okay, where's our chromium process? We can't really find that one. We can't find this one, but it's probably right under the hair. So we kind of do our little triangle down, out, neck, on the other side of the skull, where's the hip? And the skull sits in here. A little too big, but not too bad. I mean, it's not as bad as I thought it was. I think it's just because the leg was so skinny. It was making it look like it was bigger than it was. Okay, so I'm looking at it going like this, and I'm seeing this body type starting to look a little bit more. Look at that, how I sweep from the upper right through that arm, then I'll put it in later. Coming off the chromium process, breast looks pretty good. So you're not as far off as I thought at first glance. I really think that the biggest problem now that I'm checking it, and sometimes I can't tell, you know, I mean, I think I know where it's coming from, but once I'm on close scrutiny, I end up going, oh fuck, it's over there. You know, so what I really came down to with is the fact that the legs, man, the legs were too skinny and too long. That made them look too long, and it threw off a lot of your pieces. That really, the other pieces were quite good. So again, sometimes you'll swear there's a problem somewhere where it's not. And that's going to happen to the best of anybody. I don't care who it is that's critiquing you. But yeah, I don't think it's as bad as I thought, you know. But I do think those legs, man, got to beef them up. Got to really beef those little guys up. Okay. So that's more the rhythm that I see. You know, again, head not bad, not bad at all. That's more what we're talking about. Okay, you guys. Awesome job, really good. We've got one more week, and then we go on break, and we'll start up again in about 4 weeks, 3 weeks work. So we got Christmas break, happy holidays for you guys, and then we have a cool combination of streaming classes coming up for you. We have drapery, which is freaking awesome. Eric just kills it on that. Foreshortening with Lucas, which comes around once a year. probably. So that might be one you want to jump in on. I'm doing head drawing, so I'm going to use my abstractions and show you kind of how I break heads down. And I'm very heavy on rhythms and abstractions when I do that, but it'll be a lot of fun. And Eric's taking over figure next time. So, hey, I hope you see you guys in some of these. We got one more week, so make sure you get it done. I'm trying to think of who the model was. I think it was Rob. Yeah, Rob was Rob. Really good model, fun to draw. Should be a good one. I'll look forward to seeing your guys' stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about muscles and muscle abstractions next week. She's not great for that because she's a little bit more voluptuous. Next week we got Rob, so we kind of isolate between these different model types so that you have to learn how to deal with all these different bodies that you're going to be drawing. So a lot of fun this week. Great job, you guys, and I'll hope you have a good one. Stay real, make sure you do your studies, and you guys will do great. Cheers.